My name is Michael English. I'm the president and chair of Tampa Historic Streetcar Board of Directors. Welcome to the July 21st, 2021 regular Board of Directors meeting. It's nice to see everybody here and those who are here virtually. The meeting format is hybrid. Quorum is physically present here at Hart Administrative Offices at 1201 East 7th Avenue in the boardroom, and the rest of the board members are participating via communication media technology. Please look at the screens on your devices where an image of the flag is displayed, and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda is approval of minutes. We have minutes, regular board meeting hybrid minutes for May 19th, 2021, Board of Directors hybrid workshop meeting June 8th, 2021, and the regular Board of Directors hybrid meeting on June 16th, 2021. Are there any additions, deletions, or corrections? Hearing none, may I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
We have a motion from Ms. Williams. A second? A second, please?
Second?
Oh, a second? Ms. Doring? Ahern? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Thank you. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak? Is there public input this afternoon? Seeing none, I'd like to skip ahead for Mr. Smoker. He does have a report, but he's at a conference and is going to be presenting a paper in about a half an hour. So if you wouldn't mind, we will take Mr. Smoker's report at this time. Mr. Smoker?
Thank you, Chairman. English, and I appreciate the consideration of this report. I really don't have much report other than a little bit of a follow-up on the issue of the request by public to amend the station sponsorship agreement. If you recall, public under the terms of the existing agreement, and so I think they're proposing an amendment that would essentially do two things. One, it would allow them to continue to have a sponsorship of a station, and second, it would extend out for another 2 years their ability to renew. In addition, they've raised the possibility of an interest in being able to also sponsor the Amalie station. I've had conversations with Tyler Rowland about that, really in two regards. One is to get a sense of the timing of any such agreement. It turns out there's already in discussions with another advertiser who looks like will be having signage at that station for up through the middle of January of 2022. So I think at this point we're to be trying to negotiate that. We want to make clear that if there are other possible sponsors out there that might be of interest, say, to the folks at Amalie, then we want to make sure that whoever we end up with is someone that is going to be politically palatable, frankly. We don't think that there's a problem, but we want to make sure that if we do enter into a second agreement with Publix, that we're not doing it at the expense of another valuable sponsor here in the community. So what I intend to do is next month I will bring back to you the second amendment to this Publix sponsorship agreement. As I said, it will allow them to renew, and it will allow it to be extended out for another 2 years. And then we will open up some discussions with Publix about exactly what a second sponsorship at Amalie might look like. And I think we'll also try to reach out and make sure that that there may be more suitable potential sponsors out. So that's really my report. No action is required, but I just wanted to give the board an update.
Thank you, thank you, Mr. Schmolker. Mr. Rowland, is there anything you want to add to that?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to just comment, if I could.
Yeah, sure, Mr. Mechanic.
I think as part of any discussion on the Emily stop, I mean, that's not currently sponsored by anyone, but I do think that we should at least discuss the idea with the Lightning. I mean, the Lightning has been a valuable partner to the streetcar in other capacities, and I think it makes sense for us to at least let them know it's up for discussion in the event that they might also want to sponsor that stop. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you, David. I think that's a good idea. Does that make sense to you, Tyler?
Yeah, absolutely. We can certainly
Okay.
do that.
Yeah, please do check with them because honestly, it's a very important stop and for them particularly, so they should probably have first right of refusal.
Yeah, they've been consistent with their streetcar.
I'm sorry?
They've been consistent with their streetcar wraps as far as their advertising that they're interested in.
Oh, yeah, they've been a
We can
good-
certainly reach out to them and see if they're interested in that station before we
They've-
decide anything moving forward with
Right.
Publix.
They've been a good partner, and they're going to become even more important. The ownership will when we extend the streetcar north.
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay,
Sure.
good.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
one other item to consider.
Sure.
With the Rays now looking back into their sister city project and trying to bring the stadium over to Ybor, I think it is a good time to reach out to them again to see if there's further interest
That's a good
in
idea, too.
sponsoring. So I know that they just got approval to start really hitting that heavy again. I can make a connection there
Yeah,
after the
absolutely.
meeting,
Yeah,
if that's
we can
okay.
certainly connect.
Yeah, the Downtown Partnership Executive Committee had a presentation yesterday by Melanie Lenz, who's an executive with the Rays, really to pitch the sister cities, Tampa, Montreal, and the possibility, the renewed, apparently possibility of there being a baseball stadium in Tampa, in Ybor City, which is where it was discussed a couple years ago. So I think that Ms. Ahern can get you directly in touch with Melanie Lenz. She's who you need to talk to.
That'd be great. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, the next item on our agenda is an action item. It is a resolution, R 2021-0704, ratification of request to extend streetcar hours of operation for the City of Tampa's official 2021 4th of July event, Boom by the Bay. We had not a quorum last month, so we approved it in principle, and of course, it's already occurred. So I would like a motion to officially approve it, please.
So moved.
So
We have a motion
second, Bureau.
by Ms. Ahern and a second by Ms. Williams. Any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye. Opposed, say nay.
Aye.
Thank you.
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, we are now at Streetcar System Performance Report. Mr. Allen?
Good afternoon, Brian Allen, Director of Streetcar. First of all, I wanted to bring up ridership for June and to let you know that if you have my report in your packet, the number that's on my report in the packet is not correct. It's a little high. Our actual ridership for June was 80,328, still a great number. And it's compared to 25,998 from last year, so it's an apple and oranges kind of a
It's a big
thing.
improvement.
And of those riders, 46 were wheelchair boardings. And we also provided 3 hours of extra service. So in June, one of the things that was nice to come back is that extra hour of service after the Lightning games, which we were happy to provide.
Yeah, excellent.
We had 38 missed trips for the month. This is a high number, but we had 15.75 trips were missed because of weather. 9.75 were missed because of shortage of operators, 10.75 for mechanical issues, and 1.75 for an accident that occurred on June 14th when a car ran a stop sign and was hit by the streetcar at 7th Avenue and Channelside. In this accident, the driver left the scene of the accident before the police could show up. We also had a second crossing accident in June. That was on the 12th, when here on 8th Avenue and 14th, a UPS truck made a turn in front of the streetcar, and the two collided. Very minor damage in this accident, and the driver of the UPS truck was cited. So, and the only other thing is that I currently have 2 positions open. One's for a maintenance supervisor. If any of you remember Joe Delgado, he retired this month.
Oh, my.
So, and the other position's for a facility person,
What was the second position?
a facility maintenance person.
That's great.
Does anyone have any questions for me?
Yes,
Here,
ma'am.
Is your report in the publication here?
Yes, ma'am.
Maybe I'm just not able to look at it. This slide here? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. The next item on our agenda is the chair's report, and we have 2 more actions to take at this meeting to formally ratify several motions. The first, both of which happened when we didn't have a quorum. The first is a motion to approve the proposal from the Downtown Partnership for the 2021 Winter Village Express, which does include our contributing our share of the charter fee. Any questions about that? It's something we've done since the partnership began Winter Village and the fun ride on the streetcar for kids, and it's going to be, bigger and better this year, and so everybody's really looking forward to it. So may I have a motion for approval of that, please?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion for Ms. Ahern, a second for Mr. Hardy. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed say nay. Thank you. The second ratification is of a motion to approve the submittal of our 2022 preliminary budget to the City of Tampa. We did go over that in some detail last month, but I understand Hart staff wants to discuss it. Is that true, Ms. LeGrand? That there were some
Yes, Chair, and
changes?
do we want to present some of the changes?
Yeah, that'd be
Based on
fine.
getting more
Sure.
dollars?
Good afternoon, President English, members of the board, and Ms. LeGrand. I will present the changes to the fiscal year 2022 preliminary Hart and Tampa Historic Streetcar budget. Sorry. As stated, I presented to this board the fiscal year 2022 preliminary budget on June 16th. And since then, a few changes have been made to the budget that I will discuss today. In addition, for comparative purposes, the slides will include comparable data of the fiscal year 2022 preliminary budget to the fiscal year 21 projection. So this is the hard portion of the streetcar operating revenues budget. And focusing on fiscal year 2022, the Hart state grants revenues decreased from $991,000 to $801,000 when compared to the budget on the June 16th presentation. $190,000 of funds from the FDOT Free Fare Grant that is on the fiscal year 21 budget is expected to be expended as budgeted in fiscal year 21. Oops. Sorry. So with this change, the fiscal year '22 Tampa Historic Streetcar contribution increases and is budgeted at $399,000. The total HART revenues remain at $2.8 million. This is the HART portion of the streetcar operating expense budget, and there were no changes. The expense budget remains at $2.8 million. This slide is the Tampa Historic portion of the budget. This data is provided by the City of Tampa, and a change was made on the fiscal year '22 Tampa Historic Streetcar Special Service District revenues, which increased from $1,099,000 to $1.1 million, or an increase of $32,000. So on June 28th, the Hillsborough County Property Appraiser's Office issued the certified non-ad valorem preliminary assessment tax roll. These certified preliminary values were greater than the amount we originally stated and was included in the streetcar fiscal year '22 budget. So this increase in revenues and the decrease in the revenues presented on the HART slide results in a change on the Tampa Historic Streetcar budget reserve line to $112,306, and to the contribution to HART to $399,960. The total Tampa Historic Streetcar operating budget is $1.1 million. On this slide, we see the combined HART and Tampa Historic budget of revenues and expenses, which decreased from $3.7 million to $3.6 million, or a difference of $150,000. And this decreases from what was presented to the board in June to now. So the fiscal year '22 budget was updated, these numbers, and they were submitted to the City of Tampa on July 2nd for them to incorporate into the City of Tampa's budget. In reference to next steps in the budget process, since these were the changes, the only two changes that were made, the fiscal year '22 HART streetcar operating and Tampa Historic Streetcar corporate budgets are scheduled to be approved by you in August. And then in September, the fiscal year '22 HART budgets, inclusive of the streetcar, are scheduled to be approved by the HART Board of Directors. So this concludes my presentation, and I will be available to answer any questions that you may have at this time.
Thank you very much. Yes, we have a question, Ms.
Thank you,
Williams?
Chair. Thank you for the presentation. I just took me a few moments just to keep up with you, and I have a question on page 5. Revenues, what was the number prior to the 3.6 million?
The number prior to the 3.6 million was 3.7 million.
So, and then the expenses prior to the 3.6?
The expenses prior to the on this, the HART combined? you
Yes.
mean? The same, it's a balanced budget.
So
this-
we balanced the budget with, how do we do that? Because I was trying to make sure the 801,000 initially was a change on page 2,
Yes.
and we had a change of 399, which is a significant decrease. So how did we balance that?
Okay, so the changes are $190,000 of the state grants that was moved from the original presentation of HART's revenues into fiscal year '21, so that we can,
So we brought money forward.
we brought it right back to where it was originally in the fiscal year '21. So you would have the $190,000 there, and then you have that would be a decrease in revenues. And then you have an increase in revenues, which would be the $32 million from the special tax assessment. So that would be the net of $157,000, which would be the change between the 3.6 million and the 3.7 million. The change would be $157,000. And going back to your question of the $399,000, the change that we may have within the Tampa historic budget and the city of Tampa, it would be reflective of any changes made to the heart. So you would not necessarily see the 157 there. You would see the difference between what city of Tampa is going to contribute and the Tampa historic streetcar. So that's just a result of the reduction in revenues and the increase in revenues on those line items specifically.
Okay. Chair, may I ask for, at a later time, so that we see the differences? It's implied in the numbers, it's just not actually here. So I'd like to understand more about where they're coming from and going as we brought it forward out of 21 into 22, then we balanced the budget for 22, is what I'm hearing.
Okay, that's
Okay,
correct.
Okay, thank you.
Sure, and I might add that if you want that information now sent to you, I'm sure we can do that.
Sure.
Be happy to. In fact, you ought to send it to everybody, just so we know, because you're talking numbers very smoothly, but some of it goes pew.
That's fine. Are there any other?
Any other questions?
Yes, I do.
Abby?
Did we get any updates on the CSX insurance from Mr. McMeelick?
So we do have a representative today with us from the city of Tampa, and I will just see if she can respond, Nancy Harper.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hello.
I'm Nancy Harper, accountant for the streetcar at the city of Tampa.
Hi.
So you have a question about the CSX insurance?
Yes, my understanding, and we've talked about it for several months here at our meetings, my understanding was that there was going to be a significant reduction in the price of our annual renewals, which is what came to us and gave us approval and confidence to pay such a hefty commission to the insurance agent. I'm just wondering where that's reflected, and if that ever took
Well, I
place.
just wanted to bring up, because I know Hart had sent some information about grants presentation starting out at 700 and something thousand and then getting down to 580,000. And there may be some confusion with that. The FY20 CSX insurance with the fee to grants company GMC was $725,798. So in 21, the total expense of the insurance plus the fee for GMC was $638,544.
Those numbers don't match up with what's on our budget.
Well, what's on the insurance line is also the general liability.
So we, on this, okay, so on this budget for the actual for 2020, we had 597 with another line item of liability of $9,000. So we would have been just over 600,000.
Some, okay, the CSX insurance starts in like February or March. And our fiscal year is October 1st through September 30th. So each year you have partial expense from the
Okay.
year before. So that's where the difference was.
So we had the most savings in 2020, and then it just didn't, was,
No, the actual invoice that was paid was over 725,000 in 20. So the insurance that was paid, the invoice in 2021 was 638,000. So there was a reduction in the total cost of insurance plus grants fee.
okay. And his fee is for each time he renews us?
Yes. So each year, he has a fee for the policies itself, and then his fee, I guess you'd call it, an insurance broker fee. So in FY20, it was like, I think, 30,000, and in FY21, it was 50, and that was presented to the board in February or March's board meeting.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's the deal. And then he he will, he'll come to see us in the fall and start this process all over again. So how it gets negotiated this year, we don't really know. The issue, Ms. Williams, is that the last couple of years, the claims on these big insurers for transportation stuff have been high, and a bunch of them dropped out of the market. It's a very strange business for the kind of insurance we want, and so that's what pushed the price up. There are fewer insurers, and what he really did to save us money was he managed to drop the coverage from $100 million worth of liability to $75 million, saving roughly 25% of the fee. So we will see what he can accomplish in this next year. I think his goal is to drop it to $50 million because we've never had an accident in 20 years or even an incident. But I think he usually starts to come to us in September, October, and we'll know more about what the deal is this year.
Thanks.
Any other questions? If not, thank you very much for coming today. We appreciate it.
Nice to see everybody.
Thank you. The last thing under the chairman's report is I will not be physically present at our August meeting. In fact, I may not even have internet where my wife and I will be at that time of the month. So I think Lena is aware of that and can make the quorum happen without my presence, and you'll be chairing. Great.
President English, if I may, can we please take a vote to ratify submission of the budgets to City of Tampa?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, so we need a motion to ratify as changed today the submittal of our 2022 preliminary budget to the city. May I have a motion, please? Any further discussion?
So moved.
You have a motion?
Yes.
Mr. Hardy?
Second it.
And Ms. Williams, motion and a second. Any further discussion at all? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Thank you. I thought we move to Ms. LeGrand's CEO report.
Good afternoon again. I have a quick report today. I just wanted to share, I know we've talked about making sure that we add some programming or some presentations to our standing meetings. And I know today we have a great presentation from Cal, who's sitting here next to me. But I also wanted to talk to you about the strategic planning effort that we have ongoing here at Hart, and wanted to see if you would be willing to use one of your meetings as an opportunity to be a part of our visioning session. So
Sure.
maybe we could program some out, 30 minutes, 45 minutes, depending on what's on the agenda, so that this committee also, or the Tampa Historic Streetcar, can be a part of our visioning for the future of Hart. And then what we'd like to do is come back again as we continue the strategic planning process to be inclusive of, the goals and objectives around how we grow out our streetcar system and how it's connected to the overall suite of services that we provide at Hart.
I
So
think that's a great
what I wanna
idea.
ask. Okay.
Love it.
Well, thank you. And I will work with staff and with you to see
Sounds great.
which agenda. But the intention would be to schedule this before November.
Sure,
Okay.
sounds great.
Thanks.
Anything else?
That's it for me. Thank
Oh,
you.
good. Okay. The next item, number 9, is a presentation by Cal Hardy, our board member and a city transportation planner, on multimodal projects in the city of Tampa.
All right, y'all can hear me? So, basically, I just wanted to kind of give an overview of what the city capital project program, how that interacts with some of our multimodal projects, and how it interacts with the streetcar.
Cal, I can't hear you very well.
Yeah, is this on? Okay. Is that better?
Yeah.
I'll lean down. I think it's the height thing. I think,
Yeah,
a
tall
raising
people.
thing, so-
that problem.
Me
That's
either.
the reason why. All right, so Basically, I wanted to go over our guiding principles and how we implement our capital projects, and then talk about a few capital projects that we have in the pipeline. So when Mayor Jane Castor took office, she really wanted to focus on several different aspects of the city, including transportation, development services, workforce development, housing affordability, and sustainability and resiliency. As part of that, for transportation, she formed an advisory team, and the advisory team came up with 5 key recommendations. 1, to transform the transit system. 2, to reimagine trails and greenways for mobility. 3, embrace Vision Zero. 4, reinvent smart mobility in urban parking. And 5, expand community engagement efforts. As part of the Vision Zero recommendations, they have 7 key recommendations from that, but basically adopt Vision Zero as a citywide priority, join the Vision Zero network, update the land development code to reflect Vision Zero principles, create a Vision Zero role within the city government, which has been filled. That's Alana Brazier, if you had the chance to work with her. Fill sidewalk gaps, more pedestrian crossings, basically make the streets safer for pedestrians. Focus on priority corridors, including state roads and county roads, not just city roads, and make it easier to activate city streets as public spaces. Some of the things that we did for our quick action programs were a speed limit reduction program, where our goal is to have a max speed limit of 35 miles per hour on all city collector and arterials. Instead of just replacing signs, we are also backing that up with engineering treatments, such as narrower lanes, more crosswalks, enhanced markings, things like that. We're also evaluating the feasibility of turning our local roads to 20 miles per hour from 25.
Wow.
We also have a citywide always stop program. Always stop controlled intersections can reduce crashes by nearly 70% and almost 80% reduction in injury crashes. There's a prominent nationwide planner, kind of commenter, author, who said the always stop control is the new roundabout, which it's a planning joke, but it's a pretty good one. So, but yeah, so it's a very low cost, easily implemented program. However, it's very popular, and our backlog is already about 6 months. So we're trying hard to get those out. Additionally, we're doing Rrfb Deployment, which is the little yellow blinking lights, and it stands for Rectangular Rapid Flashing Beacon, which is basically a fancy word for little yellow flashing lights. So, but you've probably seen these all around the city. We installed them on Bayshore. That's a pretty prominent place. They're all over downtown. And it's just a way to provide the pedestrians with a little bit more conspicuity as they're crossing the intersections. We have about 40. This slide's probably a little bit old because this is one of the ones that we've kind of reused a bunch. So we probably have more than that now, but we already have more than 100 identified to go. Some of our other smaller programs, we're trying to get a little bit more swift with how we implement, and we have a few pilot projects and tactical urbanism projects. Our separated bike lane pilot project, this was basically a way to get separated bike lanes without the cost and time constraints of, yeah, thank you. Sorry. Is that better? Okay. Without the cost and time restraints of actually building a physical barrier. So we use these flexible delineators, and these are low cost, can be implemented quickly, and this is a pilot, so we're actually testing the actual delineator to see how well they fare out in the field, because a lot of these products are expensive, and we don't want to put something that we can't easily maintain. The 2 locations that y'all might have seen is Bayshore Boulevard and Azeel. We also are putting them in a couple other places where not just for bike lanes, but to use them for separation where we might need a delineator for other uses. Because like I said, we're testing the product too. One of the things that came up when we were doing this was the Bayshore bike lane actually filled up with debris pretty quickly. So it's something that we knew that would be an issue, but we thought our street sweeper could get to it, and it wasn't able to do that. So we actually purchased a small street sweeper, 48-inch wide sweeper to actually go in and clean these bike lanes. Some other projects that you'll probably seen around downtown are our pop-up placemaking projects. We have one by Rampello, and then we have one on Ashley Drive. The Ashley Drive corridor bulb outs, the curb extensions, that was something that was a partnership between Tampa Downtown Partnership and us. And we designed that in-house, and they had Tampa Downtown Partnership had an artist come out and paint that. Our Crosswalks to Classroom program is pretty popular. We have a few of these throughout the city where we basically put what was bookbinders, and now those little artworks are artistic interpretation of the names of books. So they're supposed to be books, but there's a problem with you can't have words in a crosswalk. It's against engineering practices. So we switched it up a little bit to make some of these artistic renderings. I don't remember the books, but there's actually, I don't know if you can see on the slide, there's actually the name of the book underneath each and every picture there.
Cool.
So that's just a few things that we're doing now. What we're going to be doing in the future is guided by our Tampa Moves program, and that is basically developing a framework for the next 30 years of our transportation system. MOVES is an acronym because everybody loves acronyms. Mobility for all, economic opportunity, that's the O, not the E. Vision for sustainability and resiliency, equity and safety. It's a value-based planning method, more equitable approach to implementing projects, and prioritizing moving people, not just vehicles, which is a different, real important way to look at things. Again, it's a citywide mobility plan. It effectively engages the community to create a clear vision for mobility in the city. It outlines our transportation objectives and initiatives for the next 30 years, and it sets the standards and priorities for all modes of travel tailored to the city's unique street and area types. So that's basically going to be what we're doing in the future, but what we're doing now is the capital program. And for those of you who don't know, the Transportation Capital Program, that's what my role at the city is. I manage all the capital projects for transportation along with my team. So anything that's in design or construction falls under my group. We generally have a few different categories. We focus on corridors, that's our complete street projects. Any collector road with striping, anything that we're doing there, that's a complete street. Intersection improvement, roundabouts, signals, things like that. Neighborhood improvements, that's basically our local road resurfacing program, but we also implement safety enhancements during that program. We do traffic calming, sidewalks, different things like that. And when we meet with the city, with the individual neighborhoods, we determine what we're actually going to put into the project. Trails and greenways, and capital maintenance such as our bridges and seawalls, and special projects including Envision Streetcar. So if you're ever wondering if you see a project that's around and you're wondering what project it is, this is our capital program viewer. This is available to the public at the link that's on top of the page here. And basically it has all the city projects, including not just my department, but every department. So you can click on it, see where we are in budget and in schedule.
Wow.
And it has a link to who is responsible for the project, so you can contact them and all that stuff. Instead of following the link, if you want an easier way to get to it, you go to tampa.gov, and on the banner you'll see a little pull-down menu for residents. And if you kind of scroll, there's a little button that's called City Projects. That brings up the page on the bottom right. And if you click on that blue button on that page, it'll bring you right to the map.
Oh.
So one of the things that we do with our corridors, our collector road corridors, is resizing them and then repurposing them to make them safer. That's generally called the road diet. And this slide is also old, but we implemented our first, over the last 20 years, we've implemented about 20 road diets across city streets. We have a few more that are planned. Basically, we're able to maintain capacity while making the roadway safer just by reprioritizing the space for other uses. And, right-of-way in itself is public space, and I think people, if you kind of look at it like that, and if you prioritize moving people rather than vehicles, then that creates opportunities to have other modes in the right-of-way. So I'm going to go through a few pictures of before and after. Some of these are built and some of them are in construction or to be built. But Columbus Drive is actually in construction right now. And if you look at the picture here, this is what's out there. It's just 2 yellow lane lines on the road. There's no other striping there. So essentially, if you look at this and there's no cars parked on the side of the road, you have two 17-foot wide lanes for cars to just go through. You see a suggestive speed limit sign there of 30 miles per hour, but there's really nothing physical to back that up. The other thing I like about this picture, or dislike about it, but like it as an example, is if you look at that corridor, and if you look at it from a public space mobility aspect, there's 4 traffic stops on this roadway. Look at the amount of space that's dedicated to people outside of vehicles. It's all pushed off to the corner. It's very scary. There's a ton of very narrow lots on this street. So each one of those lots has a curb cut. Each one of those lots has an accessibility problem. So we really did not have it wasn't a really good multimodal corridor. It was pretty much only good for one thing, and that's moving cars quickly. So now what we're currently building, and in fact, I think they are installing the street trees today or yesterday and today, but we're physically narrowing the lanes to 11 feet. We're moving the parking stalls in, and we're maintaining the parking on both sides of the road. But what we're getting instead is 8-foot sidewalks. So and that's a minimum of 8 feet. So we're actually moving the curb in to provide a much wider sidewalk on both sides of the road that also bulbs out at the intersections to reduce the crossing distance for pedestrians. That also allows us space to put trees because multimodal corridors need shade. And if you want something successful, you want street trees. They also provide traffic calming.
Cool.
So this was kind of an interesting project because when we went through design, we had some older planning studies that were done back in 2012. And with the city's budget as it is now, without any surtax and everything else, our planning studies, when you plan a study, or you do a planning study for a project that's in 2012 and you implement the project in 2020, especially for multimodal projects, the standards have changed immensely over the last 8-10 years. So when we had that, we were looking at this as a walk-bike corridor. And the idea was to, okay, we have enough space to keep parking on one side of the road and then put 2 5-foot bike lanes, striped bike lanes. No separation or anything like that. So when we got to it, we looked at it and we're like, well, parking's going to be an issue because a lot of these people don't even have driveways. This is the older section of town, very narrow lot lines and stuff like that. So that's going to be an issue. And then also, we're not doing anything to fix the sidewalk. We're not doing anything to fix the ADA issues. And these bike lanes will only exist for the length of this project, which is only half a mile. So this isn't a very long project. We had to kind of peel off bits and pieces at a time. But so it wasn't really working. It was just 2 bike lanes that went to nowhere that were unprotected. And when there wasn't a cyclist in there, you still have basically 17 feet of uninterrupted pavement to drive on. So we pivoted during our public outreach, and we really changed the scope of design. And this is going to be a big project. This is one that I'm very proud of. I think after it's said and done, it's going to be something that really, it's going to be a project that really guides us in the future. I think a lot of people are going to point to it as, hey, we want that treatment, what you did over there, over here.
Cal, what length of Columbus are you doing this?
This is Nebraska the 14th. So Nebraska to right before it splits.
Oh,
And, you know how Columbus goes 2 ways.
Excellent.
So it's not a long way, but there are, like I said, there are 4 bus stops in that area. Not only that, but the accessibility is kind of important too, or more important in that area than some other areas, because there's kind of a couple of charities that act as social services too. There's for people, especially ones that do social services for people with disability. They do job placement, all kinds of stuff. So it's a very active corridor, and if you look at it,
It is.
that section is very Main Streety compared to other parts of Columbus on either side. So
Sure.
it really made sense to do something a little bit different than I would do on either side. And in fact, on the other sides of Columbus, I might not do the same type of treatment because it's a little bit more residential, and you can probably get by with something a little bit less, prioritizing sidewalks over maybe space for bicycles. So there's not one treatment. It's really about figuring out what treatment meets the needs of the adjacent land use. And that's really what the Tampa Moves program is going to tell us. So that's kind of, we're not going to be relying on old 2012 studies. We're going to be going through and looking at it holistically and kind of building the best thing that we can build at that area.
That's great.
Florabraska Avenue is another project that's currently in design and is planned for construction in 2022. So April is our letting date on that one. This project, if you look at the before picture, you see 4 lanes. There's 8,000 vehicles. The average annual daily traffic is 8,000 vehicles. Not a ton. There is an entrance to the interstate, but that's generally a pretty moderate volume road. So we're planning a road diet here, instead of having 4 lanes, going to 3. And that's this one right here. Again, widening the sidewalks on either side of the road, allowing for, this one has about 6.5 to 7 foot wide sidewalks. We're also allowing for a separated two-way bike track with physical separation and some
Nice.
enhanced transit stops. The transit stop that's right there in the bottom right, that's actually a NACDO standard, and I don't know if you can see it, but the pavers spell out Florabraska, kind of make a little placemaking thing right there, and adding some crosswalks and some other improvements like that. Some street trees for this corridor, although this corridor generally has a pretty good canopy, so we're not going to the same extent that we went on Columbus. Our downtown core complete streets project, this one is currently designed, but we're phasing construction, so we're having our engineer kind of split the plans up because it's multiple streets. But this is Brewery from the river to Morgan, Tampa Street from Brewery to Kennedy, and Florida from Brewery to Kennedy as well. This project, basically, this is a maintenance project. This started as a resurfacing. This is something that we do a lot where we have a maintenance need, and rather than just going out and making it a pure maintenance project, resurfacing, adding the same striping, we look at it as an opportunity. So the after picture shows what we're planning here, and that includes separated cycle lanes, including parking protected, which will be the first parking protected bike lane that we've installed in the city. So that's something that we're excited about, and it really kind of changes that downtown core into a walkable, bikeable area. So one of the reasons why we're prioritizing that is on the Brewery Street Bridge. This is a maintenance project again, that when we looked at it, we're going to have to replace the decking of that bridge. We're going to have to do a lot of structural work on that bridge. When we looked at it, it's like, well, what do we want to replace the decking with? Do we want to keep it the same way? And we decided no, we wanted a connection, a multimodal connection from one side of the river to the other. So right now you have 4 lanes. I don't know if y'all have ever walked or biked on that lane.
It's scary, yeah.
Okay, so if you're on the sidewalk, I'm going to call them sidewalks, you're right up against traffic.
Oh, yeah.
And you have what's called traffic railing on the other side. It's very low. It's not meant to protect people from going over into the river. It's meant to protect vehicles, basically, from crashing over. So if you're on a bike, it's really low. So it's kind of scary there. So you have 4 lanes, though, and 2 of them split off to Bayshore, 2 of them go over to Cleveland. Well, just by taking out 1 lane and making it a choice lane, the depiction has it a little bit off. But that middle lane, you'll be able to either turn onto Bayshore or go straight to Cleveland. You don't really lose any capacity there. So we reallocate that space, and we're able to fit actual traffic railing between the vehicles and the pedestrians, and put a full-sized bike railing on either side of the sidewalks.
Wow.
And we're able to widen the sidewalks to about 8.5 to 9 feet. So it's going to be a true multimodal connection, sidewalks on both sides. The other thing that's kind of cool with this, I don't know if y'all noticed that, but the lighting that we're proposing matches the Riverwalk. And the lighting will tie into the Riverwalk. This will be a Riverwalk connection that will also connect to our upcoming Riverwalk that is, I'm going to go through it on another slide, but that's going to be on the west side of the river there.
Wow.
So additionally, we have some Greenway and Bike Boulevard projects. Bike boulevards are generally local streets that maintain vehicle traffic, but are prioritized for bike traffic. You'll find a lot of these, the first one that we're doing was Gray Street, and that's north of Kennedy. Kennedy doesn't have bike lanes, I don't think for any of it. It may have for a stretch, but a lot of people wouldn't want to bike on Kennedy. So sometimes the best, for a complete street project, we do the same thing. If we're not able to fit bike lanes on a project, sometimes it's better to look at adjacent corridors and parallel corridors and see what you can do there. So here we have the Green Artery, which was a project that's, some segments are in design now. That was funded in the fiscal year 20 surtax, but with the Supreme Court decision, we'll have to find other funding for that. But that's a 22-mile walk, pedestrian and bikeway that connects 22 miles of the city and 22 neighborhoods. The Gray Street Bike Boulevard, I kind of mentioned that, and the Grady Avenue Trail was another project going through some unimproved right-of-way that we'll have to find funding for in the future. This is the Green Spine. The Green Spine is was our first cycle track that we put in. It has been built in the downtown area. Portions of it has been built in phase 2 on the west side of the river, and it's currently being built on Nuccio. So if you're wondering what all that construction is, that's the Green Spine. It will eventually connect Howard Avenue by the JCC over there over to Cascaden Pool.
Excellent.
So the other 2 phases of phase 3 are starting next year in fiscal year 22. So that project will be all in all complete around calendar year 2025. So you'll have a connection all the way from Howard to Cascaden there. Our West River District Build Grant, this was a $24 million build grant that the city was able to get through an application. Basically, it's more than the West Riverwalk, that is a portion of it, but the West Riverwalk portions are going to be the pieces that go out over the water and under the bridges. But for the most part, this is going to be a trail that's on land, and it will go from Platt Street all the way, connect to the Bayshore Sidewalk, then go to Platt Street all the way up to Rome Avenue, real close to Columbus Drive. But we're also doing a complete street corridor enhancement to Rome Avenue from Columbus Drive to Platt Street. And then the same thing on Platt Street, a complete redo of Platt Street from Rome to Bayshore. And then it will go across Columbus Drive and tie down through Ridgewood Park. There's a street called Glenwood there to reconnect to the other Riverwalk, so it would be a complete loop. But the cool thing about this, and something that's not kind of explicit in the slide, is that if you get on the Bayshore sidewalk at Gandy, you will be able to walk all the way basically to Columbus, walk or ride on a separated trail without any road crossings, except for one at Cass Street for the entire way. So if you think about it that way, it's not just recreational, it is a commuter route, a multimodal commuter route. Altogether, that's kind of what I was discussing, as this is just something I put together real quick on Google Maps, but our low-stress bike network is basically a series of separated bikeways, separated bike lanes. This does not include just painted bike lanes. These are physically separated bike lanes, trails, cycle tracks, and bike boulevards. And this is what is already in design or construction at this point. But as this grows, you can kind of see the connectivity that's being kind of delivered through the urban core of the area of the city that will really allow for people to have real choices in transportation, not just choices, recreational choices and things like that. They can actually get there to one place safely. And I overlaid some of the DOT trails that are already there, like the Courtney Campbell. And I do know people that travel by bike from Safety Harbor over to the West Shore area. So there are people that make that trip across the day.
Those are hardy souls.
Yeah. I'm just going to kind of briefly talk. Y'all know, I think we've been briefed recently on the Tampa Streetcar, so everybody knows that the extension is there. We're still scoping the preliminary, the 30% design. Because I do want to get to some of I have a few more slides about some things that y'all probably aren't aware of. The Florida Avenue, Tampa Street lane repurposing, this is something that's new. Basically, DOT has been working on their Heist Mobility Plan. And there's a portion of that has been looking at repurposing Florida and Tampa and allowing for a transit lane down Florida Avenue and Tampa Street. This is also interacts with Hart's BRT study as well. So DOT has a 2024 possible grant that they may receive where they're going to be doing some maintenance work and some drainage work on Florida and Tampa Street. As part of that, they have to rip up the road. So rather than put back what's there, they're looking at actually doing a dedicated transit lane on those two roads from, I think, MLK to Tyler. So that's a portion there.
Wow.
So they're going through something called the lane elimination process where they actually apply to remove a travel lane on a state road and goes up to Tallahassee and you make a presentation. Hart and the city are actually involved with that process. One, because Hart can use the lane, and two, because the city was actually working on our own project. And this was kind of something that we were doing just in-house to try to push something forward and get something out there before the BRT project can come online. So this was just something that we were working ourselves. And we did two concepts, one with the lane elimination and one without, because we didn't know what DOT would allow there. But so regardless, right now, because of the two projects that we have on the table, we are working through the lane elimination process right now. If there's members here that are on the MPO subcommittees, you'll be hearing from DOT on these. I actually might be presenting at some of these. So it's just it's a cool little project that another kind of, don't ever waste any money. If you see an opportunity for a maintenance project, let's see what else we can do on the corridor. One other project that we're designing in-house and actually starting to implement in stages is our streetcar safety. We do several projects to try to increase the safety of the current system. One of these is adding red transit envelope markings to the turn-throughs instead of the white gore, which are the diagonal stripes, which are already kind of faded. So Channelside Drive, during its construction, we'll be getting this with their contractor. We're talking with SPP because they're going to be doing some work on Water Street, and we're asking them if they can just go ahead and add those markings when they do that work. And then the city has their own contractor lined up to do the rest. So this is actually starting to go in, well, as soon as Channelside Drive gets to the striping portion, they'll be putting that in soon. And we'll be trying to follow along so we can get the whole, on the current system, get this in all the proper locations. This is just an example. It shows a relatively tricky corridor that the streetcar goes through right now at the intersection of Florida and Water. So that's water. It's my New Orleans accent. I say that word very strangely. Another thing that gets brought up and something that I have trouble with myself is finding parking around here. So Nuccio Parkway also has excess capacity, and we're working on the northbound lanes with the cycle track. On the southbound lanes, we're looking at actually taking out a lane and doing a quick build project where we're adding a bike lane and parking along the entire south side Nuccio Parkway from Palm to Nebraska.
Wow.
This is not physical. This is something that can be walked over, ridden over, driven a Gasparilla float over. So we're not going to cause any disruptions there, but it's an easy way to slow down traffic and provide a benefit of something that actually is not needed at this time for a vehicle capacity reason. And then this slide I titled Lanyap, but for those of you who do know, Lanyap is a little bit extra. This has nothing to do with my work at the city or the multimodal, but that's a Louisiana term. I just wanted to throw this in here because this is something that I requested last meeting, and little did I know, but our consultant for the streetcar project already had our ridership per month, and it's what this is. It shows pre-service changes in blue, that's fiscal year 18, and then post-service change, that's the free fare. Fiscal year 19 is the orange, fiscal year 20 is the yellow, and fiscal year 21 is the green. So you can really see the improvements in the ridership. It's really nice to see this data, not just in numbers, but in little skyscrapers there. It really kind of shows you how much that helped and how much that changed everything. And two, what's really interesting is the last couple of months of fiscal year 21 and the upticks there. So this is good till May, but this is just taking the data that we get every week or every month, and we just put it, our consultant put it into a chart here. So I just wanted to add that in there just for everybody to see. So that's all I got. Y'all have any questions?
Wow. Any questions, anyone? You know, it's very impressive. I've been around long enough to remember that the city transportation department was run by a man who was trained as a sanitary sewer engineer, and his goal was to make things move as fast as possible. And you all are transforming the city, and you're doing it very professionally and very creatively, and I really appreciate the presentation because I personally wasn't aware of a lot of this stuff, most of it. So,
Well, I appreciate that, and I got to tell you, it's just a portion. There's a lot more that we're doing. I just try to tailor it to really urban core projects and things that are around here, but we're doing it all across the city, so we're excited about it. So, but I appreciate those comments.
excellent. Really nice presentation. Any other comments?
Since you asked, I think you're very thoughtful about how you are doing this and making sure that it appeals to the need at the time. I thought that was very impressive to take 2012 information and then take another look at it and see what the needs are at this moment. So that's a very thoughtful process and considerate of the needs of our patrons at this point and people who live in the neighborhoods, and just really thinking about that and how we can change and make it for people versus vehicles. I think that was a profound statement, and I appreciate the amount of detail and methodical processes that you've gone through to build this vision, and we can actually see it come into fruition. So thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate that too. And yeah, it's important. It's when you know, it's not just from a care standpoint, but if you can look at it from a traffic standpoint. If you start looking at 2045 projections, it'll be quicker to bike, you know. So you got to make it even if you're looking at it from a completely selfish standpoint, you're gonna want to have those items in the future. And really, this is something that started a while back, but it's not until now that people are starting to see the fruits of all that labor, because back then those bike lanes did go nowhere. You know, it was not a connected system. Until you get something that is connected, it won't be used. But you lay down street by street, and then eventually people will come. So, but I do appreciate that.
Well done, thank you.
All right. Thank y'all.
Thank you very much, Cal. The next item on our agenda is the Vector Media Sales Activity Report. Tyler Rowland will give an overview of the sales activities for the month of June.
Good afternoon, Tyler Rowland, Manager, Communications and Creative Services. We briefly talked about the publics and the sponsorships, so the only thing I have to add is we have 2 new advertisers that were put on the Streetcar actually this month, Brooks Law Group and the Johnson Group, and our year-to-date revenue based on the guarantee is $57,500.
Good.
So,
Any
that's all I have.
questions,
If there's any
Mr. Rowland?
questions.
Thank you so
All right,
much.
thank you.
That brings us to compliance reports. They are provided in your packets in section 11. The marketing report for June 2021 and the City of Tampa financial statements. Thank you both. Thank you all for providing those. Any questions about those reports? Hearing none, let's move to old business. Is there any old business? Hearing none, let's move to new business. Is there any new business? Yes.
I
Ms.
should have
Aher.
mentioned it while you were up, Cal, but I just had the pleasure of not only listening to you today, but also last week at the CAC meetings where you spoke about the additional funds. Well done. Beyond expectations. You walked in, you shared the information, and typically there would have been a lot of discussion, but they heard all the plans and all your efforts and said, here's our money. So, so thank you for your discussion points and making it something easy for the CACs to grant.
Yeah, I appreciate that. During that, it was a Zoom meeting, and everybody was muted. So when I gave the presentation, I didn't hear anything. I'm like, oh, man, that went terrible. So I appreciate hearing that it wasn't that bad in the room.
No,
'cause I
in the
didn't hear
room,
any of
it went really well.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, just as an aside, Hart staff and I are appearing at the city council sitting as the CRA tomorrow morning, and I'll be thanking the city staff. I want to thank the Hart staff for all of their finding the money from DOT and working with the city staff and really everything that you do. And it's been a hard year, and you've done a great job. And the fact that we have a healthy budget to move forward with is a credit to all of you, and I want to thank you for that. There's no old or new business. May I have a motion for adjournment, please?
So moved?
We have a motion by Mr. Hardy.
Second.
A second by Ms. Williams. All in favor, say aye.
Hi.
This meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I can't wait to hear your